Hey everybody, welcome into this NFL playoff preview show. I'm Nick D'Amelio. I will be producing today, joined by our host Zach Deal and our other host Sean Redden, who will be joining us shortly. But Zach, what do we got on the menu today, bro?
Today, we're going to be diving into the second round of the NFL playoffs. Obviously, we had a fantastic week last week. As we told you last podcast, it was the inaugural playoff weekend where they added an extra playoff team. So there was only one bye per conference, which made for really good football, and every team came to play. Even the Saints, the Bears. I mean, the last thing I told you on the podcast when we were talking about Bears Saints was Jimmy Graham will catch a touchdown, and then what ended up happening? He snagged a one-handed Madden-like catch. So I always tell you guys I just appreciate Jimmy Graham because I feel like he kind of goes under the radar for actually how good he is, and he's going to go down as one of the greatest tight ends ever. But enough for Jimmy Graham, who is now probably going to be golfing in the offseason, and the Bears ended up with a record that isn't even at 500, so we're going to stop talking about them. Make sure you guys go check out Viget in the App Store, VIG space IT. Use promo code capital U, capital C, lowercase sports. You have a free 1,000 credits to use as you please. We got Sean in here, our co-host for today. How we doing, brother?
What's good, Zach? Glad to be back with you.
The Daily Dose, so make sure you guys go check that out as well. He's got some interesting stories that he was telling me pre-production here, so I'm definitely going to go back and listen to it, even though he already told me. So make sure you guys do that as well. Make sure you go check out the Twitter page, Instagram. We're obviously live on Facebook right now. Website is under construction, and we'll have that up and ready for you guys soon. So, Sean, I think it's just right if we just go in chronological order. But today I'm not going to try and make more so it based off of each game, since last week, obviously, we had more games. But I kind of want to dive into more of like the totality of what's going on in the playoffs. Obviously, we're going to talk matchup based. So just to start it off here, Rams versus Packers, first game that will kick off this weekend.
Sponsor us, Miller Lite.
Yes, sir. 4:35 Saturday kickoff. Rams, Packers. Arguably, on each side of the ball, we have the best player from each side of the ball on each team, as in Aaron Rodgers, who I believe I'm thinking about today. All this hype behind Patrick Mahomes, and I love Patrick Mahomes, don't get me wrong. Patrick Mahomes is absolutely phenomenal. Obviously, at such a young age, he's already accomplished so much in the NFL. But so many people didn't know how this Green Bay Packers situation was going to go with a first-round drafted quarterback, and obviously they didn't spend more resources even past that to get Aaron Rodgers some help when a lot of people thought he needed some help. Spending a second-round pick also on a power back when they already have one of the best backfields in the league, and they need to pay one of their young star running backs in Aaron Jones, which I told you guys before in the beginning of the season that be on alert for that, because I don't know if he's really going to truly stay a Green Bay Packer, because his production and what I think they're going to offer him might not match each other. But
I would never pay running back in today's age.
I don't know if I'm pairing Aaron Jones like I'm. If you have an Alvin Kamara or Dalvin Cook or a Derrick Henry type of your team that has a special trait, I think Aaron Jones is a really good player, but he kind of fits in that. I think he's better than this player, but Chris Carson type, where he's very productive.
But I mean, James Williams is efficient in that Packers backfield too.
Yeah, Jamal Williams actually ended up getting drafted in the same draft, and Jamal Williams went in front of Aaron Jones. He was a fourth-round pick, and Aaron Jones went fifth round out of UTEP, and Williams went to BYU. So that duo has shown to be pretty explosive. Obviously, A.J. Dillon did his thing when he got his call. And depending on the weather of this game, obviously, we know it's at Lambeau. So A.J. Dillon can play a factor in that. But getting back to Aaron Rodgers, a lot of people didn't know how this 2020 season was going to go for the Green Bay Packers because of the resources that they spent in the draft and the offseason that they had. And what does Aaron Rodgers come back and do? 48 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. That is astronomical production. You're talking astronomical production. You're throwing over 40 touchdowns. That means you're taking risks and you're pushing the ball down the field. And it's not like you're just dunking the ball down the field. And to have only 5 interceptions on the entire season and be as efficient and claim that number one ranking in the NFC to get the bye in obviously the new era of playoff football where there's only one bye available is just ridiculous. So I think Aaron Rodgers is well on his way to another MVP award. And I think this might carry over to really some team success as well. But this matchup versus the Rams, man, you got the other guy I was talking about here, even with the torn cartilage in his ribs. Aaron Donald, man. Aaron
Yeah.
Donald. What is one weakness for the Packers going into this game? They're all pro tackle. David Bakhtiari tearing his ACL in a practice. That is so upsetting, just as an NFL fan in general. So I'll take my odds. Obviously, we were talking about it pre-production too. Jared Veldheer was signed, who he started with the Indianapolis Colts last week in the playoffs versus the Buffalo Bills. And he actually was signed to the Green Bay Packers and was eligible to play, which would have made him the first player ever to play in two different playoff games in the same season with two different teams. So he actually got put on COVID reserve midweek. So it's unfortunate that that played out. But Jared Veldheer, although he's in his later years of his career, is definitely a serviceable tackle. And he played for the Packers in a spot area next year as well. So now they're down to obviously bringing in Jared Veldheer. They felt like they needed to plug a hole at that position or at least have some depth in case something happened in the game. Now you're down to practically a third-string left tackle on the edge trying to go against one of the teams that can create the best pass rush production in the league. And we even saw Aaron Donald go out last week. Leonard Floyd this thing versus Russell Wilson, who's arguably the greatest scrambler. I'm not saying running quarterback, but scrambler in the game now. And the Rams were really causing some havoc for that Seattle offensive line. I mean, I'll obviously hold the Green Bay offensive line in higher regard, but without their top guy,
for sure.
How do you think that the matchup plays out where Aaron Donald, he can line up anywhere?
I was going to say, if I'm Sean McVay or the Rams defensive coordinator, I'm 100% exploiting Bakhtiari being out. I'm lining up Aaron Donald immediately where the backup is, and I'm just going to take my chances with the best defensive lineman in the NFL versus a backup able to get to Aaron Rodgers. But like you brought up, Leonard Floyd, and then all these other, like the Rams defense is just filled with playmakers. Everybody wants to talk about Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey, but their defense as a whole has just been causing havoc all season long. The matchup that I'm anticipating seeing the most, and like honestly, like fuck every game, like I don't care. The only thing, like the thing I'm looking forward to the most about this weekend is watching Davante Adams versus Jalen Ramsey. That's the thing I'm looking forward to the most out of every game this weekend.
Who do you think wins that matchup? You obviously know how high regard Jalen Ramsey. I think Jalen Ramsey is the best. I also told people Davante Adams. I've been a Davante Adams guy since he was at Fresno State with Derek Carr going crazy. 2 years at Fresno State, 38 touchdowns, 24 touchdowns, which was like top 5 in NCAA history in a single season at the age of 19-20. And it's obviously carried over to the NFL. And if you want to make the comparisons of a college level Derek Carr or even the Derek Carr now, and that the galaxy gap of what Aaron Rodgers is talent-wise, and that's not even being disrespectful to Derek Carr because Derek Carr
100%.
is a top 15 quarterback. But we're talking about, in my opinion, Aaron Rodgers is the most talented quarterback of all time. It's not. There's no
agreed. I think he's definitely the most talented
a lot of people,
quarterback.
a lot of more so old heads. I don't know if that's the right term to use, but old heads will say Dan Marino's got the best arm I've ever seen, and Dan Marino's phenomenal. But Dan Marino had that arm and also had the athleticism that Aaron Rodgers is able to mesh together with that. I'll give Dan Marino credit. Early in his career, he set that touchdown record and kind of started pushing the league. Dan Marino was one of kind of the pioneers, ambassadors to really put the passing game on the map in the NFL with those high passing touchdown records.
Yeah, absolutely.
At the time,
and I think Marino would put up astronomical numbers in this era of the NFL where you can't breathe on a receiver or it's PI. But
if you think Frank Wright's doing that type of stuff this season with Phillip Rivers, imagine a prime Dan Marino going off in that offense. So behind that offensive line, that he'll never get touched. So.
But as far as the Jalen Ramsey and Davante Adams matchup goes, it's really hard for me to pick a winner. I mean, we're talking about probably the number 1 corner in the game versus a top 3 receiver in the NFL. But like Davante Adams is a footwork magician. He's a route running technician. He's like, it's almost an art form watching him run his routes. And I think the difference is in this game to where I kind of want to give the edge to Davante Adams. I'm not saying he's going to go off and have like 130 yards and 2 touchdowns on Jalen Ramsey, but here's where I give him an edge is he is probably the best route runner that Jalen Ramsey is going to face this season. But the difference is for Davante Adams, not only is he the best route runner, in my opinion, that he'll face, he has a quarterback in Aaron Rodgers that will give him a chance. Like the other quarterbacks that he's facing, like they're like if when they played the Cowboys week 1, like I'm looking at Amari Cooper, but am I going to throw to Amari Cooper covered by Jalen Ramsey, or am I going to throw it to Gallup or CeeDee Lamb, who have easier matchups? And then vice versa with the Seattle game, am I going to throw it to DK Metcalf, or am I going to try to find Tyler Lockett, who has an easier matchup? I think Aaron Rodgers is the kind of guy who was like, you know what? I don't care if he has a step or a half a step. I'm going to give him my guy a chance to go get that ball.
And that's also another thing, like you said, how good of a route runner Davante Adams is. To add to that, he's arguably, if you match him up with guys like A.J. Brown, one of the strongest receivers in the NFL.
Yeah.
So you're not going to be able to just bully him off the line of scrimmage and knock him off his route as easy as other guys that were. If Jalen Ramsey with that 6'2", 210, 215 size and frame gets his hands on you, you're pretty much just done and pretty much eliminates you for the route. But the thing that's interesting is Davante Adams being tied up with Jalen Ramsey for most of the day, and we'll see. Obviously, we're not saying all 70, 75, 80 snaps on offense is going to be Jalen Ramsey versus Davante Adams. Because at some point, there's going to be motion and there's going to be schemes where Jalen Ramsey.
You saw DK Metcalf break free last week for a touchdown.
Exactly. He got 2 touchdowns, but when he's on Jalen Ramsey, oh man, get the handcuffs ready. Yeah, go get the handcuffs ready. So the interesting part about that is if Davante and Jalen are really, really battling, Darius Williams on the other side for the Los Angeles Rams this season has proven to be a playmaker. And you've seen with guys before, Marcus Peters, when he was playing there too. Guys, when you had that solidified number 1 corner, even Marcus Peters now with Marlon Humphrey, that second corner, when he has that ball skill and that type of talent, he can just go out and roam around and kind of do his thing, play freely because he knows he has the security on the other side. So that's going to be interesting to see the other wide receivers versus the other corners with the Rams. And like you said, when you got Amari Cooper in a Dallas-LA game week 1 lined up on each other with Jalen Ramsey, and you see CeeDee Lamb and Michael Gallup having a lot more favorable matchups, you're probably going to want to target them. And Aaron Rodgers has shown he's got Robert Tonyan, 35 catches on the season, 10 touchdowns.
Yeah.
They didn't make the Pro Bowl somehow. My guy Evan Ingram made it. And that actually ticked me off about Evan Ingram. I wasn't feeling that. I think Robert Tonyan got a nod, but there was only 2 tight ends selected. But that just shows Aaron Rodgers spreads the ball around. I always tell people, fantasy football-wise, if we're looking at it like this, I know we're doing a playoff podcast, but if Aaron Rodgers, like he did this season, throws 48 touchdowns, Davante has right around 20, how many more touchdowns? There's 28 more touchdowns to go around to the receiving corps. Just like Patrick Mahomes, when people ask me, Sammy Watkins and fantasy, this, that, the other, Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, blah, blah, blah. If Patrick Mahomes throws another 50 touchdowns, how many passing touchdowns are going to go around? So, I mean, as good as Davante Adams is, I think in a playoff matchup, especially versus Rams defense, there's going to have to be some pretty impressive production from the other wide receivers in the
Absolutely.
Scantling's going to have to show up. Robert Tonyan, Jamal Williams out of the backfield is going to have to be able to do his thing on checkdowns. And that pass rush is really going to come down to how much pass rush can the Rams generate on Aaron Rodgers, and will it rattle him or not? What happened last year when Aaron Rodgers was eliminated from the playoffs? That pass rush was just so overwhelming from the San Francisco 49ers. He really couldn't do anything. So if they can match a game plan like that and execute it, I mean, the Rams have a pretty good chance with how good that defense is.
Well, now that we broke down the game, let's give our predictions on who we think is going to win and what the score is. I know you just said that you think the Rams have a shot because of that defense. So how close of a game are you thinking this is?
Well, that's the biggest thing with what the next point was, where Jared Goff. How much can Jared Goff do with that thumb? I mean, he had surgery.
I was literally that's kind of why I started that conversation, because I was going to say I don't think the Rams have any shot to win this game. From a betting perspective, they might cover the spread, and you can hear my thoughts on that on the Green Zone tomorrow. But I don't think they have any shot to win this game, because Jared Goff with a broken thumb that didn't have time to heal in the cold, and he already stinks. That offense ain't going to do anything. Although I told you last week, Jared Goff was my X factor in that game. I said if he plays, I'm taking the Rams money line. So he played, and I cashed in on that.
No, Jared Goff was good. It was just Jared Goff. There was just limitations to it. He pretty much looked like Jared Goff. It was just every couple throws he would just have an errant throw just because of the limitations on his thumb. It was probably obviously getting stiff. I just when you would see it on TV, you see a little just like tape, a little tape over his thumb. You see him whacking around. You know it's cold out there. You see just pass rushers breathing down his throat, and you're just like, man,
that's what I'm saying. It's supposed to be
Jared
below.
Goff for staying in that game and really truly battling. Like what do quarterbacks do when they're not getting completely hit and thrown to the ground? They try and brace their fall.
Mm-hmm.
They're using their throwing hand to brace their fall with their thumb. And for Jared Goff to stand in there. But another key factor was the Rams got 130 yards rushing from their rookie running back.
Absolutely. Yeah, Cam Akers is dog. He's
so
a dog.
If Cam Akers can rush the same way, and Cam Akers gets productive yards. Cam Akers runs hard, and he'll run right at you. He has a lot of different moves in his arsenal. So if they can get that type of production, especially from a rookie, I mean – these Rams, they're just like one of those teams that kind of has the underdog because it feels like one of those teams that felt disrespected from knowing they were at the top and they faltered down a little bit and kind of changed the rankings. But look at what Sean McVay's done since he's been the Rams head coach. And that's another big thing. The matchup between the head coaches that a lot of people aren't talking about. Matt LaFleur and Sean McVay coached together in Washington.
Mm-hmm.
Matt LaFleur was on the LA Rams staff Sean McVay's rookie year as the head coach. So it's going to be really interesting to see how that plays out. Two guys that know each other very well. Matt LaFleur said it himself. He's one of my best friends. He's like a brother to me. But when we hit the field on Saturday, the gloves are off.
Yeah, I think the only difference in the coaching, I'm a big fan of LaFleur. Then obviously McVay has success that you can't argue against. But one of these coaches has Jared Goff. One of these coaches has Aaron Rodgers.
I was literally just about to say, like, the freedom of each coach. Like, Sean McVay has to call the perfect game to even put his team in position to win. You could just have Aaron Rodgers calling his own plays like he was with Mike McCarthy, and it is what it is. And he's throwing 48 touchdowns and 5 picks. So to wrap this up, this matchup, I'm going to take the Packers. Obviously, I'm not going to be surprised if the Rams win this game, but I'll take the Packers just because the firepower that they have. I think they're going to actually have a lot of trouble with the pass rush for the Rams, but at the end of the day, Aaron Rodgers is going to prove why he's one of the most talented quarterbacks of all time, and he's going to put matters into his own hands and really grind out this win for the Green Bay Packers, especially at home too. So Lambeau Field, even with Corona, you want to talk about home field advantage. There's no place that gets bigger with that.
Frozen tundra.
Exactly. So. And it doesn't seem to affect like people out there. You're going to see DBs like Jalen Ramsey is going to be all sorts of masked up with double sleeves on and everything with a hand warmer and everything. That's my boy. And then you're going to see Devontae Adams with just like a wristband on his sleeve. Literally looks like he's freezing. He's out there just like literally doing freezing cold stuff to people. So if we're going with the score, I'm going to make it Packers 34, Rams 24.
Ooh, Packers 34, Rams 24.
Yes, sir.
I think it's going to be. I still have the Packers winning by double digits, but I don't see how the Rams score 24 points in this game. I think it's going to be closer to like a 27-13 Packers win.
You think so? We'll see. I mean, like I said, the Rams, obviously, with the limitation with Jared Goff himself, it's going to be tough where if he can't make spectacular plays and play outside even the system because it's the playoffs. You're not just going to get by with being able to execute your scheme. You're going to have to make big-time plays in big-time situations. So Cooper Kupp's also banged up, so that doesn't help the Rams' offense out any better, especially. So that kind of limits what they can do in the pass game as well. So offensively, it's going to be a tough day for them. Like you said, it might be tough for them to score 24, but I think they will somehow find a way to get a touchdown out of their special teams unit or their defensive unit in some form, which would also.
Yeah, I'm about to say you said that last week and it came true, and they're gonna need it.
Exactly, and I was talking about my boy Darius Williams, and I love Russell Wilson, but Darius Williams has proven to be an absolute baller this year. So.
Yeah, that was film study and anticipation. As soon as DK,
I thought DK. How'd you feel about DK being able to actually like tackle him right off the bat, or you just think it happened so quickly that he just?
I honestly don't even think DK realized he caught it.
Yeah,
because he kind of like came, and even a defender, like it took him like 3 steps before he actually had it controlled. So I think DK was kind of just caught off guard, and then by that point, given if he had to run as far as Buda Baker did, he probably still catches him. But dude only had to run 15 yards. There was no shot DK was catching up.
Yeah, for sure. And that's when if someone pulls that on you in Madden, jumps a route like that, you run the fake screen wheel and you hit them with the wheel route in the slot. So that's what you do with that in Madden for all my Madden people out there. But moving on to the next matchup, I think I'm going to go a little off track. We said we're going to go in chronological order, but this one I'm just so hyped to talk about. Bucks, Saints. You're a Tampa guy, even though you're not stationed out there right now, but what'd you say last podcast? You said something crazy last podcast about somebody. You said you would do something crazy if something.
Oh, I said if it had nothing to do with the Bucks. It said I said if the Bills make it, I'm gonna let Bills slam me through a table.
Okay, all right. So we'll be getting to the Bills game shortly and see how you feel about that. But Bucks exclusive, Saints, a divisional matchup, third time they're meeting this season. Two of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. There's so many different storylines. Two of the greatest receiving corps we've ever seen touch foot on the field together. I mean, there's just so much. You got random, like, historic players just lurking all over the field. Like, back in the day, like, if you saw Jason Pierre-Paul in his prime, like, he was probably like a household name, honestly. He got to the point where he was a household name. And Jason Pierre-Paul would even be mentioned in the top, like, 30 players in this game. You know what I mean?
I would give JPP a hand.
Oh, man, stop now. Come on, man. That's my guy. I was so surprised he was actually able to even get any sack production with the limitations. He had the specialized glove made for him, though. So that obviously worked out. But the Bucks, I think the biggest matchup here is Michael Thomas obviously looked pretty good last week, got into the end zone. You know, the capability of the Saints offense. There's a little bit up in the air of like what they truly want to do nowadays because it seems like it was so dead set on Alvin and Michael Thomas, but really obviously Michael Thomas setting the NFL catch record a season before, and then Alvin Kamara playing off of that. But I feel like their offense runs more fluently when Alvin Kamara is the main guy in the offense, and they base it around that. And Michael Thomas can kind of fill in the holes. And Emmanuel Sanders and Jared Cook can make some plays. Like I said before, Jared Cook somehow. We were talking about it on the last podcast. They don't really have too many downfield threats, but somehow Jared Cook always seems to be at the tight end position their biggest downfield threat at times. So what I'm getting at here is the Tampa Bay Bucks defensive secondary has so much talent, but they're also so inexperienced and so young. They have so much talent. Sometimes you'll see them out there and they're just rolling, getting multiple interceptions in games, bringing them back to the crib. Straight lockdown defense, and then other times we see them like we saw them versus the Saints the last time they matched up on Sunday Night Football, and they allow 38 points in the 90.
Well, that was a lot. That was a lot of the offense putting the defense in the bad
Yeah, it was obviously
that was the worst game Tom Brady's ever played in his career.
Yeah, that was it was a poor performance. I'll give them that. I felt like they were like in that game. They were trying to do too much. They were literally trying to like dead set predict things would happen. They were trying to get Antonio Brown really deep early a couple times on the first drive. And they were like, I felt like telegraphed on what they were trying to do. And it was just like too obvious. And the Saints on the vice versa there, the Saints defense is one of the most experienced clubs and units together. And now they have young guys stepping up. Trey Hendrickson was top 4 in the league in sacks this season.
And he had a field day the last time they played the Bucks.
Exactly. And also shout out to him because he's got some of the best swag in the NFL. He wears the long sleeves with no gloves. Any defensive lineman that doesn't wear gloves or tape their fingers potentially could be a serial killer later in their life. That's all I'm going to say. Because to be in the trenches and have your fingers just getting absolutely just tangled up with people like that, it's not fun. Especially like the last matchup we talked about, Lambeau Field, Green Bay Packers. You do not want to go into Lambeau Field not having gloves or tape on your hands. So shout out to him. But Cam Jordan leads that unit. You just have studs lurking all around. That secondary plays so well. Marshawn Lattimore seems to be Mike Evans' kryptonite for whatever reason. Yeah. They have some personal vendetta and some personal beef.
Marshawn Lattimore is a lockdown corner twice a year, and it's when they play the Bucks. Other than that, it's on name value only.
Yeah, he's honestly pretty clumsy outside of those matchups, but they obviously have a bunch of Ohio State guys lurking around in that secondary. Malcolm Jenkins as well, who usually gets the matchups between the tight ends and running backs nowadays. So we'll see if he can cover
a big Gronk game. We always exploit Malcolm Jenkins in 2020.
Put your money on Gronk, maybe possibly 2 touchdowns, red zone. Also, that's what's really scary about the Bucs if you are the Saints, because obviously the last time they played them consecutively pretty early in the season. So this version of the Bucs and the version of Tom Brady and Antonio Brown and Gronk and how the entire unit's playing, getting guys back healthy. Ronald Jones should be back this week. This version of the Bucs is different than the version of the Bucs that they saw earlier in the season. And it's so scary when you look at 300 plus career receiving touchdowns between their receiving core. You absolutely have no clue which way or which facet they're going to attack you. Mike Evans goes into the matchup last week, and we said it would probably be pretty important for him to have a pretty good game because he is, at the end of the day, the number one option for the Bucs offense. Mm-hmm. He has proven since he's been there, even without Tom Brady. He goes in with a hyperextended knee, which is not something you just throw off lightly.
And he goes looks shaken early.
Yards.
Yeah.
So if Mike Evans can do that banged up, Chris Godwin, you still have him in the mix, and he just gets completely forgotten about with Antonio Brown and Gronk. Mm-hmm. Cameron Brate still makes plays when you got him in the red zone and you can line up in double tight end sets.
And Godwin was terrible last week.
Exactly.
Terrible.
I think that finger injury that he suffered earlier in the season is still kind of lingering with him a tad bit. But at the end of the day, Chris Godwin, he really just has to just do his thing. You still got Scotty Miller. Chris Godwin, if they can get 4 to 5 catches, 50 to 60 yards, and really get those big plays from Mike Evans and Antonio Brown, and just have Chris Godwin just kind of just move the sticks and get some first downs. I mean, I just can't put my money on the Saints beating Tom Brady and the Bucs for a third time this season. I just can't do it.
Then don't, because Red Hot Lock, the only one you'll get, unless you listen to the Green Zone, Bucs money line. You ain't beating the Bucs 3 times this year.
Yeah. And you're not beating Tom Brady. And what we saw from Tom Brady, like I said, at the end of the season, this is now the upgraded Tesla. I'm paying $2,000 to make my car faster playoff version of Tom Brady. So he just flips the switch like that. And last season, going out on the pick 6 from his former teammate to end his run in New England, that left a bad taste in his mouth. And I think knowing Tom Brady, I don't know him personally, but knowing of what I've seen from his career, I wouldn't be surprised if he has a picture of Logan Ryan literally dancing in the end zone in his locker or something, just hanging it as a bulletin board material. And you saw that stuff can really play a factor. Look what the Browns did last week.
Yeah.
They got completely disrespected by Juju Smith, and it's still going on with Chase Claypool. I'm about done here with Notre Dame. Now we're talking about the playoff podcast, but
what do you expect? What do you expect from a Notre Dame player?
Come on now. I'm not gonna let you rope me into feeding.
Although I don't know why Claypool is like doing like acting so sour, like on social media this week. Like he went to Notre Dame. Like they always lose the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah, come on now. Come on now. At least they're sniffing the playoffs. Come on. We saw what happened to another ACC team. But we're staying on track here. What do you think? Are you taking the over or the under in this game? We have 2 of the greatest quarterbacks stepping
I'm probably not touching it. It is indoors, so weather's not going to be a factor. Gun to my head, I'll probably take the over because the Bucs offense ain't going to look like what Mr. Trubisky and the Bears offense looked like last week. I would probably lean the over, but I'm probably not going to play it. But I'm definitely on the Bucs this week.
I remember I was so hyped week 1 on that over-under, and I thought it was so low in my opinion. I think it was like 54.5. And the Bucs ended up scoring the first touchdown of the game.
Bucs came out on fire.
Yeah, and then it just absolutely went downhill from there. Mike Evans ended up having 1 catch that entire game, and it was for a touchdown to the end zone on that corner route he ran out of the slot position. So, like I said, the Bucs have so many threats now, and that's the week 1 version of the Bucs. So the Bucs have so many versions now where you can have a star player literally only give you 1 crucial play in the game, and if it goes for a touchdown, it could be the deciding factor in the game. So I'm taking the Bucs, Sean. like you said, the only red hot locks you're giving out on the podcast, money line pound for the Bucks this weekend. I'm going to be taking that. I don't know how I'm going to set up my bet yet, but I'm taking the Bucks, and I'm going to take the Bucks in impressive fashion. I think their offense is really going to start clicking in this game, and the Saints are kind of the defense for the Saints is kind of going to be confused. But I'm not saying the Saints are going to be in this game because I think it's going to be just an outrageous, crazy game. I'm taking the Bucks 35-31. And I'm giving you some high scoring outputs from a lot of these playoff teams. I just think the way that the NFL is going right now and how competitive each team left in the playoffs is that it's going to make for a good high scoring game.
It's funny. I kind of want to change my prediction now because of your score, but I'm still going to rock with it. I have the Bucks 34-31.
34-31. All right, we'll see. Maybe if somehow knowing the playoffs, it'll end up like 33-31 or something.
Yeah.
So it'll be a funky score. But honestly, if you had to watch one game, you're only allowed to watch one game this weekend. Is this the game you're watching?
No.
Is it the next game I'm about to mention? Because I don't know. It's a toss-up between these two. Ravens-Bills.
That's the game I'm watching.
Ravens-Bills. I feel like these two teams are so evenly matched. It's like they're pretty much clones of each other. The one obviously can pass the ball more. Although the Ravens, I was dogging Hollywood Brown in the beginning of the season, being a first-round pick. The end of the season
I cut
strong for him.
Sacramento Brown.
Come on, Hollywood.
He didn't earn the name Hollywood yet. That's Sacramento Brown until further notice.
I mean, his start to the career had people so hyped that disrespect. People forget about how far the Dolphins came.
I cut him week seven of the fantasy football season this year.
Oh yeah, he ended up actually coming on strong at the end of the season. 5 touchdowns to end the back end of the season. Last week, he went for over 100 yards, which was huge.
Yeah, he just needed Trace McSorley to get in there to have a breakout game.
I mean, Lamar's been passing the ball. Lamar's been a threat. I mean, what he's been able to do, obviously, he still has some limitations in the game, but it feels like his receivers are starting to actually make plays for him. 140 yards on the ground almost last week. If he goes for another one, he'll have the record for most 100-yard rushing games in the playoffs, and he literally set the record for the youngest quarterback to ever make a start in the playoffs 2 seasons ago. So his uptick is definitely on the come up. It's just, is Lamar Jackson going to be able to do what he does versus the Buffalo Bills? The Buffalo Bills not only have so much talent on defense, they're one of the most well-coached defensive teams behind Sean McDermott in the entire league. They're another unit that's been together for a while, and they're kind of like a lot of outcasts. They're not all the biggest names, and they kind of just fit together and just morph into this really team-based, solid defense. And the secondary, obviously, last year's matchup when the Bills, Stephon Diggs had John Brown up in there, still 9-3, which was impressive for Josh Allen's production. And the way that he was able to take the leap forward this year, people call me crazy. I asked this question. Who do you think rushes for more yards in this game between the two quarterbacks?
Lamar Jackson, easy.
Easy? Just based off of obviously the design runs. But if Josh Allen had the freedom to have more, and we've seen it before, they run like empty, if you want to call it empty bill, because the Cam Newton empty panther, where they used to set him up with like a full house formation out of shotgun and just have him run the ball. Josh Allen actually gets those looks in certain situations, and he's able to do that. And I wonder how much he's going to have to be able to use his legs even more with Zach Moss going down last week with that leg injury. So I don't know if he's going to be needed in that fashion to add a little bit and create a little bit more with his legs. But
they did sign Devontae Freeman.
We'll see. Devontae Freeman, though, I talked about him way too much this season about fantasy football. I told you he was like my highlighted week 1 fantasy football guy to keep on the back burner, and then he's all over the place, and he's not the same Devonta Freeman that I thought he was back in the day. But he obviously can be productive, and running backs, if it's one position that you can really just come in and just be signed to a team and just roll out and do it. I mean, running back is a complicated position. There is a lot to do, but basically it's the same exact assignments that you would do in any other spot. So it's just based off the blocking that you get to run the ball behind. So the production that the Bills receivers are giving, that's the biggest matchup. We have so many good secondary versus wide receiver matchups this weekend. Ravens secondary is absolutely loaded. It's going to be interesting to see how they match up. Is Stephon Diggs going to be locked on and covered by Marlon Humphrey or Marcus Peters? Or
he's going to cook either one. He's going to cook.
You think
either
so?
one.
Marlon Humphrey had a rough week last week versus AJ Brown, but he ended up they ended up only giving 13 points up total as a defense. So that's what you really have to hang your hat on at the end of the day. But another interesting factor is Calais Campbell, 6'8". There's not too many defensive linemen that are even as tall as Josh Allen is. Potentially that could actually swat down his pass over the middle. So that's another factor. Obviously, that would probably only happen a couple times a game, but that could truly be a crucial third down situation. He tries to go quick over the middle in man coverage, and Calais Campbell's able to get his hands up. You still got just littered with Pro Bowlers. Matthew Judon never gets talked about, another Pro Bowl bid this season. So I really think it's going to come down to, because I think Lamar's just going to do his thing, just do what he's able to do. But it's going to come down to what Buffalo's offense is able to produce versus the Baltimore defense.
Yeah, I've been going back and forth on this game all week, and I might change my mind tomorrow. I don't know. One day I wake up and I feel Bills. Other day I wake up and I feel the Ravens. But right now I'm currently set on I'll take the Bills 30-24 over the Ravens. I think the Ravens defense is kind of overrated. I think if Tannehill was a little sharper last week, that they win that game last week versus the Baltimore Ravens. But the Bills can't stop the run at all. So that's a huge factor. But I also think the Bills are going to be able to score on this Ravens defense. So the Ravens aren't going to be able to rely on that run game like they were last week, like being able to get a lead and then just hold it running the ball. I think Lamar is going to do his thing running. That's why I said I would take him over Josh Allen's rushing yards. I think Lamar is going to be able to have his way running the ball against this Bills defense. But I'll take the Bills 30-24 with the Lamar costly interception late in the game.
It's going to be interesting, too, because if you look at the Bills secondary, I would take the Bills defensive backs every day of the week probably right now over the Ravens wide receiving core. So if they can really only run the ball with Lamar and obviously get production for J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards in the backfield, and they're not getting any pass production, and you can't just throw the ball to Mark Andrews, especially with those two safeties back there who are probably the best tandem currently in the playoffs and arguably in the entire league as two safeties together. So you can't just do the same things over and over again. But then again, if you're looking at the Bills defense, you got guys like Tremaine Edwards, who's just an absolute like a Madden made-up player. And as good as he is, seeing Lamar do stuff on tape and then having to actually tackle Lamar in person is two completely different things. That touchdown run versus Tennessee last week was absolutely ridiculous. Mm-hmm. That was Michael Vick-like. And that was honestly it was one of those signature plays, like the Bengals spinning.
That was a turning point in the game.
And that shows that him being able to not only pick up the first down, get to the pylon and beat out so many guys. You know, the mental courage that takes and what his teammates that feeds off of them. That they all feed off of that type of energy. They know Lamar Jackson was the MVP and he's been doubted this entire season. So it's going to be really, really intriguing to see this matchup. But I'm going to have to go Ravens on this one, but it's going to be crazy close. I'm going 24-21 Ravens.
I like it. I just don't have that much faith in Lamar Jackson yet.
I as much as I love Josh Allen, I kind of feel the same way. I'm not the biggest Lamar truther because I still feel like Lamar, obviously, last week he didn't even throw a passing touchdown, had one interception, didn't even throw for 200 yards. I'm not going to base
that interception was the worst throw I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, it was a punt. It was a very bad throw. And the Bills have proven where if you make a costly mistake, you said it was going to be a late interception that cost the Ravens. I think it might be worse for the Ravens to had to face adversity early because the Bills have proven, look at what they did to Seattle this year. Seattle was balling offensively later into that game. They were throwing touchdowns in garbage time too, either DK, even all that, put up 34 points, but they allowed 44 points because the Bills off the bat just steamrolled them with the turnover. So if Lamar turns the ball over early and the Bills are able to get a comfortable lead right off the bat, you saw it last week with the Browns and what they did to the Steelers. It's so hard to come back in those type of games. So we're going to see. But like I said, Buffalo, if they can't have a consistent run
I think this is going to be the best game of the week. The best game of the weekend.
I think not only is it the best game on paper, it's going to play out to be the best game during the weekend, and it's the hardest game to decipher who's going to win the game.
That's what I said. I go.
Having all three of those factors then makes for sign me up. That makes for good playoff football. Let's get to the last matchup here, though. This one, I don't know how much time we really truly should spend on it, because as much as the Browns have been a courageous story this entire season, the Chiefs are the new dynasty.
I think this game is actually intriguing. I don't think the Browns are going to win. We'll just get that out the way right now. I'm sure you feel the same way. We're both going to probably take the Chiefs. But the Chiefs' defense is dog shit.
Yeah.
Absolute dog shit. They especially against the run. Yeah. Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt should have their way against this Chiefs defense. I expect them to be able to do their thing. They're going to have multiple touchdowns. If Baker Mayfield takes care of the ball, the Browns have a chance to be in this game. The Browns defense is just as bad as the Chiefs. It might even be worse, especially in the secondary. They couldn't get exploited last week because Big Ben should have retired 4 years ago, and his arm is cooked.
You're never winning a playoff. You're never winning any NFL game throwing 68 passing attempts and then adding 4 interceptions on top of it. You're literally having a chance.
And then also, I bet you 61 of the 68 attempts were under 5 yards. Like the Steelers, and they don't have a run game. So, like, their run game is the short passing game. But
they literally were ranked basement. People, when they talk about the Steelers, that was the biggest thing this year, why people thought they were fraudulent. And James Conner, this, that, the other. He had 2 touchdowns. Like, his best game this year was 2 touchdowns, 60 yards on, like, 18 attempts.
Yeah.
Benny Snell had the best performance week 1 versus the Giants when he went for 100+. The Steelers were literally last ranked in the NFL in team stats for rushing. A lot of people didn't.
No, they can't. They have no running game whatsoever. And that's obviously not the case with the Chiefs with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Le'Veon Bell, and there's nobody on the Browns defense that's sticking Tyreek Hill. There's nobody on the Browns defense that's sticking McCole Hardman, and they don't have a linebacker who's sticking with Travis Kelce. I think the Chiefs are going to be able to score points at will, and I think the Browns are going to be able to have success against this Chiefs defense. The spread in the game is 10 points. That's a lot for an NFL playoff game, but it could be for good reason. Listen to the Green Zone tomorrow to hear that. I was going to get into it, but I'm like, nah, because then I got to leave you something to listen to tomorrow. But 10's a lot in a playoff game, and that could tell you all you need to know about the game. But I think as long as Baker Mayfield doesn't turn the rock over, the Browns can have success against this Chiefs team. I'm going to go with the Chiefs winning this game 38-23.
38-23. I'm interested to see the factor of Kevin Stefanski having to watch last week's playoff game from his basement. Obviously,
he should stay there.
Obviously, he.
How many head coaching interviews is Van Pelt going to get this week?
A lot. I mean, you show up in a situation, interim head coach for a playoff game versus a team that hadn't even.
You absolutely pecker slap your division rival.
Yeah, completely. And it's not even only just that of what happened this season. This is like a historic playoff win. We're talking about the Browns franchise versus the Steelers franchise in division.
And while we're talking about the Browns, like, I don't want to take a shit on the Browns because what they did was awesome. I'm so excited for the Browns fan base. I actually have a friend of mine who's a diehard Browns fan.
There's a lot of Browns fans obviously around here. We're living in the Northeast area.
This guy's actually from Ohio. I met him down in Tampa, but he because nobody in Tampa is from Tampa. They're all from everybody else. But so he's actually from Ohio. Grew up a diehard Browns fan. Actually went to a couple Browns games this year. He was messaging me the entire game like, "Bro, I can't believe we're actually gonna fucking do it. This is nuts!" Like, and then when
I would have told my boy, as much as I appreciate him, I would have told him, you got to stop messaging me. Bad karma.
And then when they started coming back, he's like, "Here we are the Browns," like blah blah. And then like I was living through his emotional roller coaster. So I don't want to shit on like Browns had a tremendous season, and it's only gonna get better. And the franchise is only going to get better as the years go on with Stefanski and Baker Mayfield and guys like that. but 58% of their points that they scored came in the first quarter and off turnovers versus Steelers. Mahomes ain't throwing the ball to you.
Yeah.
It's like just I would
You
be
want to hear
really
something
excited that
interesting,
you're
though? You
playing
want to
in
hear
the
something
divisional round.
interesting? Mahomes had the most turnover-worthy throws, interception-wise, in the NFL this season. I think he had. I don't know if that's actually correct. He had. I think it was double-digit dropped interceptions this season.
I wouldn't doubt it. Mahomes doesn't give a shit.
Yeah, it's all about just him absolutely just slinging around.
He's
But
throwing.
that's what you're like. It's just so depressing because you know how hard the Browns fought to get this situation. The point of Kevin Stefanski coaching in his basement last week, I want to see how the true effect is. Obviously, he could have put his flair in the game and put his seasoning on last week's game. But at the end of the day, there were situations that he was not able to have any input whatsoever on. So I want to see if that's actually an advantage for the Browns of being able to be a little bit different this week. But at the end of the day, as hard as the Browns are going to work and the success that may come with it, it takes one flick of the wrist and Tyreek Hill to just run past you for a 75-yard touchdown to be on the board. And we saw it last year, which was not too long ago. We're talking not even a full year, 11 months ago. 11 points down in the Super Bowl, and they just come back 7 minutes
down the last divisional round, down 24-0 to the Texans.
Exactly. They were the first team ever to win 3 straight playoff games with 10 comebacks.
And they come back and cover. They didn't just win; they covered.
50 burger in the playoffs.
That's crazy. I mean, they're just different. But
it's a new young dynasty.
I recommend anybody listening to the show, whether you're watching this live or you're going to listen back later, I highly recommend, if you're like, oh my God, I don't give a fuck, Baker Mayfield versus Patrick Mahomes, I don't give a shit, Mayfield stinks, Mahomes, blah, blah. Do yourself a favor. Go on YouTube, type in 2016 Oklahoma versus Texas Tech. Don't watch the highlights. Watch the full game. It is the greatest college football quarterback battle in college football history. Yeah. Baker Mayfield, 7 touchdowns, no interceptions. Mahomes, 5 touchdowns, interception, 2 more touchdowns on the ground. Joe Mixon, over 350 total yards with 5 touchdowns himself. Kiki Kute, the wide receiver for the Houston Texans, with like 180 yards receiving and a touchdown. Shit was absolutely nuts. And Baker Mayfield.
I'm very glad you brought up Mahomes' rushing stats in that game, because when I was looking back at that game, I was like, yo, he went for 95 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns on top of the 720 plus pass.
Yeah.
720 plus passing yards is hard to get in an ultimate team challenge in Madden that you're playing against the computer on rookie. So just to put that into perspective.
Yeah, Mahomes threw over 700. Baker Mayfield with 5 touchdowns. Baker Mayfield threw over 500 with 7 touchdowns. So, I mean, shit was and if you it's funny to look back now, because I actually went back and watched it the other day. And, like, my friend asked me about the game, and I'm like, just points. And he's like, why? And I sent him the link to the video. I'm like, watch this, and you'll see why. Points. And then, but it's funny, like, watching, like, Baker Mayfield's, like, handing off to Joe Mixon or dumping it off to Joe Mixon in the backfield, or he's hitting a deep pass to D.D. Westbrook, or he's I'm totally blanking on his name right now. The receiver Lewis, I'm totally blanking on his name right now, but he's like their number 1 receiver at Oklahoma at the time. And
you're talking Hollywood Brown was on that team too, wasn't he?
No, Mark Andrews was, yes. Hollywood Brown wasn't really playing then.
Yeah, no, he was on the team though. Yeah.
But he wasn't really playing. Why am I blanking? Who's the Giants receiver? Not Sterling Shepard. Oh, Lewis. I'm totally blanking on his name right now.
I'm trying to think who you're talking about.
But he was their number 1 receiver. He had a game. Joe Mixon, D.D. Westbrook, who's on the Jaguars now. Obviously, Mixon's on the Bengals. But then it was funny to watch Patrick Mahomes throw to Kiki Kute, and then the number 1 receiver for the Texas Tech team at that time isn't even a big-name player in the NFL. So it was just funny to see.
That just shows you the true talent of Patrick Mahomes. And even honestly, it's funny. You go look at the prototypes of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. And I'm going to put Patrick Mahomes up there with the prototypes of those guys now. I know he's 25 years old, but he doesn't have the most outrageous, impressive body. Looks like he would be the greatest athlete in the world. Tom Brady doesn't either.
Even watching that game, I was like, because, like, mind you, I coming out in the draft when I did my scouting reports, I said Patrick Mahomes, to me, his player comp was Donovan McNabb. I said he's a guy who can make plays with his legs, not really a game breaker when he runs, but he can run, but he has a huge arm, and I felt like he could have a career similar to Donovan McNabb. Obviously, he's better than Donovan McNabb, but, like, I was watching that game in full, and I'm sitting back, and I'm just like, because I was actually saying in my head before, I'm like, how didn't I think like Mahomes would be better? Like blah blah. But then that was the first time I watched his college film in years. So like I was watching that game and I'm like, there's nothing special. Like I was like,
that's it's the mannerism. Mannerism is so odd and weird.
Like he was like his interceptions he threw were bad. Like they were bad interceptions. And like he's just flicking the ball. I didn't see a crazy deep ball like from him. Like I'm just like,
but that's also that was the same
why.
thing on Josh Allen, though. Josh Allen, some of those throws that he was making in college, the interceptions he was throwing, he would make a crossbody 45-yard post throw that was outrageous. Next play, come back, crossbody, Brett Favre like NFC Championship interception across the field during the second quarter of a random 1AA game. You know what I mean? So it was like so many people didn't know how he was going to play out either because he obviously has all the physical measurables, but mentally we didn't know if he was there. With Mahomes, it was just like it was so hard to get a tell on him. I couldn't even get a tell, honestly, on Deshaun Watson because I thought Deshaun Watson was somebody that may have succeeded and been at the highest of the highs as a college quarterback. And I didn't know if it was going to translate. And now Deshaun Watson, if I had to compare him to a player in NFL history, it's Randall Cunningham. And it might even be a better version of Randall Cunningham. I don't know if he has the exact same straight arm strength, but as a total player, Deshaun Watson does whatever you want. It's going to be interesting to see if he does leave Houston. And so much was caused by this dysfunction of Houston by Patrick Mahomes itself.
Me and Nick talked about it.
The rumors of that.
Before we hopped on here, me and Nick were actually, when we were recording the Daily Dose, one of our topics tonight was Deshaun Watson landing spots. So I'm actually excited to see him if he does end up leaving outside of Houston. I'm actually excited to see him somewhere else, depending on where it goes. But that Texas Tech team with Patrick Mahomes, like looking back, that team went 5-7, and they had Patrick Mahomes at the quarterback, and then Cliff Kingsbury, the head coach of the Arizona Cardinals now, was the head coach of Texas Tech.
Yeah. And Texas Tech's been able to pass the ball for a really long time. They would have a very high clip when they had Mike Leach there too with Michael Crabtree. They were going.
Graham Harrell was setting records.
Graham Harrell, man, that's another one in the vault. Graham Harrell. Graham Harrell fits in like that, like Jordan Lynch, like Northern Illinois, like type great college quarterbacks. But Graham
Harrell is a dark horse for the Eagles' offensive coordinator position.
That'd be interesting for sure. I mean, that's why I was okay with Kellen Moore being brought in because obviously you would like to pick a guy, especially a big time rival. You would love to know his offensive scheme.
That's why I saw so many people were like, so many people on Twitter and like on Facebook today were like, I can't believe the Eagles are interviewing Kellen Moore.
Not liking the Cowboys. Like
I was like, bro. First of all, Dak Prescott's numbers jumped when Kellen Moore became the OC, and two, you get to sit down and talk to an opposing rival's coach about his plans on offense. Like, what? Of course you interview him.
Yeah, 100%. But then again, it could also play out to be the other way. I don't know how revealing Jeff Lurie and Howie Roseman will be in those conversations with Kellen Moore about their true ideology and their plan, but it could work both ways. But it's going to be interesting. Kellen Moore has proven, though, it's not like he just inherited the Cowboys offense and just made it the same of what it was and elevated it a little bit. They kind of turned into a different type of team that was based off of rushing for the past couple of seasons.
And he was offered the Boise State head coaching job, his alma mater, earlier this year.
He was Ian Johnson with the Statue of Liberty. He was
because their head coach took the job at Auburn, so they actually offered the head coaching job to Kellen Moore, and he turned it down. So it's like that guy has higher aspirations. So I'm like, don't just be like, oh, it's Kellen Moore. No, dude's been a fucking solid offensive coordinator.
Especially, and it's proven that the younger guys like that, they can prove to catch fire. And you saw, like we said, Sean McVay.
That's why.
Some other hot young candidates, Joe Brady.
That's why I'm still holding out for Joe Brady.
Joe Brady, though. Joe Brady looking
superstar.
Joe Brady might get confused for a rookie player if he walks into the building.
No, Joe. That's the guy I want. I'll be disappointed.
Brady would be very interesting. Obviously, you saw what he did at LSU last season.
Like there's other names that I'm like, okay, I can live with that. That's a solid hire. But if it's not Joe Brady, I'm gonna be disappointed.
And I feel like people with guys like that, they see Joe Brady and he was at LSU, and they're like think he's just a product of the talent that he had to be.
Justin Jefferson did an interview today actually on the Pat McAfee show, and Pat McAfee asked him like transitioning to the NFL, like did he expect to have as much success as a rookie as he did? And he said no. He goes, I played in Joe Brady's offense in college. He said I knew all the terminology. It came like second nature when I stepped into an NFL offense. And I'm just like, I tweeted the Eagles, and I'm like, this is the guy, bro. This is the guy, Joe Brady.
And you're talking about this is a guy that we should have drafted in the first round too. When you say that as well, Justin Jefferson. So.
But he probably comes here and looks like Jalen Reagor. Nobody's putting up.
He would have been able to do so much more. But with those young guys, so many people are so caught up on with Kellen Moore. They're like, oh, first off, if it's Philadelphia Eagles fans that are discussing how they feel about Kellen Moore and they say they don't like them, first off, they're just being completely biased to hating the Cowboys.
Yeah,
they don't have anything to do with them. It's like, dude. You watch Kellen Moore suit up for the Cowboys in a preseason game like 5 years ago, and he's the offensive coordinator. You probably haven't seen his face even on TV in the past couple of years. Like, what are you so pressed about of hating these young guys? Even with all the talent that he had with the Cowboys this season, it also takes scheming and being able to recognize talent to bring those guys in to be a part of your offense. So with all that working for him, I would love for the Eagles to get their hands on a young, hot commodity. A lot of rumors are too. Robert Saleh, depending on where he ends up going, he's going to have a superstar staff to bring with him. He's got some connections. I mean, Robert Saleh is with the Seattle Seahawks during the Legion of Boom era as a position coach. He then goes to the Jacksonville Jaguars during their crazy run with during when they were the better defensive teams in the league, making it to the AFC Championship. And now he's currently with the 49ers, who obviously have been one of the best defensive teams of the past decade. So Robert Saleh is another hot commodity where depending on who he's able to bring in. How do you feel about Jared Mayo? He's another young guy, 34 years old, just reminds me of – I'm not saying I like it either way or the other because I truly don't know how philosophy-wise he would be able to hang and how much say he would be able to have. Obviously, being a linebacker, you have to have a lot of IQ, especially what he was. He was a high-level linebacker as well. But I feel like just even interviewing him for the Eagles is just kind of – they're trying to replicate what the Tennessee Titans did with Mike Vrabel and trying to get that players-type coach. But you also see
if they want to hire a players-type coach, it's Deuce Staley. And I mean,
he's already in the locker room.
And I don't want.
He's got the connections with all the players in the organization already in the locker room and outside the locker room between the legends and everything, which is always important too. People don't really like. You saw Andre Johnson absolutely rip the Houston Texans, and as of right now, I mean, maybe J.J. Watt, but Andre Johnson's probably the best Texan of all time still. Yeah. If J.J. Watt is, and I probably would put J.J. Watt honestly now at this point, especially if he does move on, J.J. Watt's probably the best Texan of all time, just what he's able to be and his impact. But Andre Johnson is highly regarded in the Houston area, and he's just highly regarded as a man. He has a lot of respect from a lot of people out there. I mean, I think everybody remembers what he did to Cortland Finnegan. I think Cortland Finnegan remembers that too. But he completely ripped the Houston Texans organization. So you can't have bad relationships. I mean, you see it in other sports too, like Charles Oakley with the Knicks, and like guys like Spike Lee. You can't have bad relationships with people that are still a part of the organization. And if the Eagles truly want to win over the locker room, and Deuce Staley is the guy that can do that, already being in the locker room, having all the connections, I just don't know. When you put Deuce into that role, where it goes from there, like where does he try and you already haven't trying to have Doug Peterson hire in-house or elevate in-house guys, and that's practically what lost his job. Deuce
That's what I
Staley.
said. I don't think Lori's gonna hire Deuce because he clearly wants a fresh outlook and like a new voice. Because he fired Doug for promoting within, so I doubt Deuce gets a job. I don't think Deuce deserves a job. I would be pissed if he was their head coach hire. He's been a shitty running back coach. I mean, people want to be like, "Oh, Deuce," because he's been here long, and you remember yelling "Deuce" when you went to the games in the vet. Like, fuck out of here. He hasn't. Miles Sanders still the same running back he was when he got here. He still fumbles, still can't pass block for shit, still can't, and he fumbles a lot. Boston Scott, unless he's playing the Giants, stinks. Corey Clement stinks. Now he hasn't developed a single running back since he got here. All the guy, like, what has he done to deserve to move up? Like, it makes zero sense to me to love the guy gets. I get the players like him, but there's plenty of good guys in the NFL, but I don't think Deuce has done anything to earn the right to move up. I don't even think he's been even remotely a good running backs coach.
Yeah, if you're looking at outside, if Deuce was in another organization, I don't think he even gets.
He'd be fired. He'd be fired.
Yeah, I don't even think he gets close to a head coaching interview. I think at the highest, maybe offensive coordinator, and that would still be a big leap for him. But talking about Mike Vrabel and the Tennessee outlook of Jared Mayo, Arthur Smith was obviously also a name that was mentioned out there at the offensive coordinator position for the Tennessee Titans. But I truly don't know how I feel about him either, because I feel like his is more so he has the roster and he's working with his roster. And if he gets to another spot and he doesn't have the players that he needs to have, I mean, you saw the Tennessee offense when Derrick Henry's not able to get going, they're putting up 13 points. You know what I mean? So it's not the most intriguing job. I'm more
also because Tannehill's not as good as people think he is.
I mean, it's been Ryan Tannehill at the end of the day. It's been the same. He's gotten better 100%, and he is a baller. But if Derrick Henry's not putting up 100 yards and he can't have guys running open and play, it's the same thing with Jared Goff. Jared Goff and Ryan Tannehill are clones, little clones of each other. Where Jared Goff, if he doesn't have play action, basically can't do anything. So. It's going to be interesting to see. Not only that, just all the other jobs. We have Urban Meyer, who got hired by the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think that was just based off of that's like he turned on Madden. He started to create a coach, knew he was going to have the number 1 overall pick in Trevor Lawrence, and he's just winging it. He has no clue. I'm not saying, obviously, it's Urban Meyer. I mean, he had Alex Smith as the number 1 overall pick at Utah, went to Florida, starts winning back-to-back national championships with Tim Tebow. Goes to Ohio State, starts winning national championships as well. He's just a program. He just changes programs, turns them around. But the Jaguars are in just such an odd spot. Like they need so much. They have resources. They had multiple first-round picks this past season, but with Trevor Lawrence, it's going to be interesting to see how they build.
I love Trevor Lawrence. I kind of hope the Jags don't take him. I doubt they're not.
What is the likeliness of Trevor Lawrence not being the number 1 pick? I think it's like I think his odds have to be like minus 10,000 right now.
Yeah, no, he's going to be the number 1 pick, but I'm hoping he's not because I'm wishing nothing but terrible things onto the Jaguars organization because Urban Meyer is a piece of shit. He's a clown. Can't stand the guy. I hope nothing but bad things happen to him and whatever.
Where's this
and whatever team he's in. Because he's a piece of shit. He was at Florida, and then when they stopped winning championships and Alabama took over and he wasn't getting the recruiting classes, all of a sudden he has a heart condition, and I can never coach again. Then he leaves. Ohio State comes calling. Super talented roster. Don't have to compete with Nick Saban anymore in the recruiting battles. Let me go to Ohio State. I'm magically better. The condition that told me I could never coach again is fucking gone. In Ohio, they don't have it. So I go to Ohio State. Same thing. I win 1 national championship. Then I'm not winning the recruiting battles anymore. Players are going to Clemson and Alabama now. Fuck, the heart condition's back. And at his press conference, he said, I truly mean it. I am never going to coach again. I can't do it for my health. Well. 4 years later, however long it's been, we're coaching again. Fuck you, Urban Meyer, and your fake-ass heart condition.
He sounds like he is the number one opportunistic dude there is. If a Madden-like situation comes up where he gets the number one pick on one of the greatest quarterback prospects of all time and a team that needs to be turned around and something that he's known to do, he's gonna definitely knock down that door. But with Urban Meyer, I mean, that the AFC South in general is just an absolute mess. Just the AFC South in general. So they had to first focus on literally getting out of winning the AFC South itself. And there's already turmoil. It shouldn't honestly be too hard. Even the Jags, like next year where Trevor Lawrence can put up a fight, maybe win 5 or 6 games. I have no clue what the roster is going to look like. But just with the turmoil already going on in that division, it's going to be interesting to see how the Colts pivot if Philip Rivers comes back or if Deshaun Watson, what happens with him and the Texans. Obviously, the Titans, if they lose Arthur Smith, how their offense bounces back. But, Urban Meyer being taking the first vacancy and taking that job is very interesting because the Jacksonville Jaguars, I mean, that's probably some hope for them as a team, but there's a lot of work to do over there for them. But it was a great podcast today. Appreciate you guys joining in. Make sure you guys tune in are you doing the Daily Dose tomorrow, Sean?
Yeah, the Daily Dose and the Green Zone will be out tomorrow.
All righty. Make sure you guys check that out. Make sure you check out all of our social media pages, Twitter, obviously live on Facebook right now, our website, and the Instagram page. Make sure you check out Viget as well, VIG_IT. Use promo code capital U, capital C, lowercase sports. Get 3,000 credits to use as you please on there. Make sure you check out the lines this weekend. Sean puts all of his picks for multiple different sports with the sports crossover on there.
The only place you'll find my basketball and baseball. Well, baseball's not started yet, but the only place you'll find my basketball Red Hot Locks.
Yes, sir. And you get 1,000 free credits when you use our promo code on there. So if you use it, you have not only the credits to use, but you have all different types of sports to sprinkle the credits on. So make sure you check that out. Even if you want to contest us on there too, I have some credits laying around. I'll be down to do that. Just hit me up and we'll see you guys. I'll be back for the normal weekly UC podcast at the beginning of next week. So I'll see you guys then.